what can you tell us? What do you know about this ISIS-K group?
The Islamic State Khorasan province, it's an element of the Islamic State's global network. It has several thousand fighters inside Afghanistan, and it is a dangerous organization, as we saw yesterday. But the threat from Afghanistan by ISK is more localized. Look, to me, the real threat in Afghanistan is the Taliban, and it's the Taliban because of its relationship with al-Qaeda. The Taliban-al-Qaeda relationship is endured. It is not diminished, as President Biden has stated. This has been a talking point for 3 successive administrations for well over a decade now. They have said this in order to justify the withdrawal from Afghanistan. After all, you can't leave Afghanistan if al-Qaeda is still strong there. But then, again, I'm not discounting the threat from the Islamic State out of Afghanistan, but I just want to reiterate that threat that the Taliban controls a state now. They did this with the help of al-Qaeda, and that is the real threat that we should be concerned about, that we should focus on. And one more point quickly on the Islamic State Khorasan province. There's credible reporting in the United Nations that the Taliban has used the Islamic State in instances to carry out suicide attacks inside Afghanistan. And what this does is they've used them as a cutout and to give it plausible deniability. And if that is true, and I'm told it is, then this makes the Taliban even more dangerous.
Well, we were hearing from the administration that ISIS-K is the arch enemy of the Taliban, and this goes back to the enemy of my enemy is my friend. The U.S. government is saying, well, we'll work with the Taliban to keep this ISIS-K group at bay. Are you saying that is completely off base?
Absolutely off base. This is the 2 successive administrations have decided that they can negotiate with the Taliban. As we've seen, the Taliban haven't lived up to their word. They took control of Afghanistan. That wasn't what they were supposed to do, or U.S. officials believed that they would do. They've maintained the relationship with al-Qaeda. Yes, the relationship between the Taliban and the Islamic State is very complicated. Yes, they're enemies and have fought at times. So what the administration's policy is we're going to use one terrorist group that uses suicide bombers, that's the Taliban, to protect American citizens in Afghanistan from another terrorist group, that's the Islamic State, that uses suicide bombers. That is a recipe for failure, and that is a reason why we lost 13 service members yesterday. This is part of an insane policy that spans multiple administrations. The Taliban has always been our enemy. They've remained closely in bed with al-Qaeda, and they're ignoring this threat in order to justify withdrawal.
Well, I wanted to hear it from you, but you don't have to sell me. I mean, I always felt this way about these people, but you've got to clarify for us, because as we are learning, it was actually one suicide bomber. We have so many multinational companies based here in the U.S. who have operations either in the region or in regions where they are able to extend their tentacles. Would the next type of attacks look the same as the one that we saw outside the Kabul airport? And, as a follow-up question, what should American companies be doing to step up their security right now?
Yeah, so these types of attacks have occurred against corporations in Africa, in the Middle East. I mean, remember there were suicide attacks in Aramco in Saudi Arabia over a decade ago. This is the goal of al-Qaeda, and the same thing for the Islamic State. They both share the same goal. They're just opposing organizations. It is to take over individual countries, make them part of their emirate, make each of these emirates part of its global caliphate. That is their plan. Afghanistan is now one of those emirates. They're attempting this in Somalia, and Yemen, Syria, and I could go country by country where they're fighting active insurgencies. Right. So the threat exists in all of these countries, but in countries where they're not waging insurgencies, the security has to be, this is something that has existed since 9/11. I would be very concerned about my employees, their personal safety, and increasing security at headquarters and other facilities.
But Bill, so many companies look at security as sort of an operational division. There is very little high-level reporting, meaning going up the chain and telling the CEO on a regular basis where we stand, what kind of threats are imminent, et cetera, what they know, or any accountability. Do companies have to become more vigilant now that we see what's going on in Afghanistan?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think countries or companies should have been vigilant on this post 9/11, and because again,
Always.
these threats have been happening. We've seen hotels attacked. Look what happened in Mumbai, that Lashkar-e-Taiba attack, where they attacked multiple locations and in a complex attack. These attacks have been happening. One of the problems I have with the, again, successive administrations downplaying al-Qaeda's presence in Afghanistan is that it gives it a false sense of security. The businesses, people listen to the American government, the American intelligence community, and when they're downplaying threats, look at the President Obama in 2013 when he called the Islamic State the JV team, and that they weren't a threat to the international community. They were only concerned about waging local jihad. That was completely wrong. These types of assessments that are given in order to justify policies of withdrawal to end the so-called endless wars. Look, we can end our involvement in these wars, but the enemy still gets a vote. The enemy is going to wage an endless jihad against us. And I think that the businesses are soft targets. They need to take these threats seriously.
Unfortunately, you are 100% correct. Bill Roggio, thank you very much. Good to see you. Thanks for the clarifications and the information.